Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another week of Max Potential Habits. You know, this is your place to hear inspirational interviews, get tips, tools, and strategies to help you optimize your habits so you can thrive in your life and business. And I'm super psyched today because I don't think, when I was thinking about all the episodes we've had and all the interviewees I've had on, I don't think I've ever interviewed anyone specifically about brand strategy. Of course, we've talked a lot about marketing and different tools there, but I found Jordan on Instagram and her account is spectacular. We got on a get to know you Zoom and we started chatting and I was like, okay, you are awesome. First of all, I love the name of her company, Ignite Your Soul Brand. Like, you can just tell when someone's good at branding. So that was really fun. And we had a really great conversation. And I said, I want you to come on and share your powerful tips with the NFA community and help them thrive, because I know that most of you are entrepreneurs and you are wanting to take your business to the next level, and branding is a super important part of that process. So welcome to the show today, Jordan.
Hey, well, thanks so much for having me, Amanda. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm always down to nerd out on branding.
Nerd out on branding. I love it. Yes. Okay. First, this is a funny question that I didn't think to prep you for, so it'll be like on the fly. What is a quote that you love that has aligned your life, or just some quote that you live by?
One thing I love that I got from Tony Robbins when I went to his Power Within is where focus goes. Where focus goes, energy goes, or something like that.
Yeah. Energy. I think it's energy flows where focus goes, or focus goes where energy flows. Yeah. Focus goes where energy flows, which is awesome because I talk a lot about energy on here, thinking about manifestation and things like that. It's like if your energy's misaligned, you're not going to get the results you want. So that's a good one. Yeah. So, okay, then share where is your focus right now? I know that you said you've got a lot of big things happening in your business. What's focused for you?
Well, right now, this current moment, we are finished up with camp and moving over to, virtual school. So this week is an adventure. My focus is on survival in this very current moment. But in general, my focus is on a big rebrand. I've, kind of took the time in COVID to go within and just say, how do I want to show up in my business for the next year / forever? And, I'd been working in advertising and marketing for pretty much my whole career and was building my business while I was working at an ad agency. And then when I left, I was doing mostly strategy work, which, I love and I adore. However, I wasn't really doing a lot of creative pieces for my clients. And I started to notice that I was grumpy and irritable and frustrated. And I was like, I need more creativity. So I kind of took that time with COVID to, restructure my packages, restructure my offers, and, really kind of embed the strategy piece in the visual components that I, done for 20 years. And that's been really awesome and super fun. And, I kind of took myself on the same journey I take my clients on, because I was like, I'm not going to torture another creative. I know that they will hate me because I know I'll drive them crazy. So I drove myself crazy. And then I just had a big mega photo shoot a couple weeks ago. And so I'll be updating my website with that and finalizing the copy and stuff like that. So that's
nice
from a business standpoint.
That's awesome. And so your new focus and direction is programs to walk people through their branding strategies, and say more. I want to hear more.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm really focused on doing done for you with my clients, and people come to me at different stages. Sometimes it's more, the logo and the brand identity, and I typically will kind of bake a social, like a strategy kit in there. Sorry, a social kit, so they have some templates and stuff like that, because it doesn't really make sense to have all this and they're like, now what do I do with it? And one thing that I really did in my sort of revamp and rebrand is I put the strategy piece in it. So I actually take my clients on probably about a 3-hour deep dive. I was going to do it separate, but after some thought, I was like, to me, they go together. Like, you do that to get that. And so we do, pretty intensive deep dive, and then I create this very thorough guide for them, and then use that information to then go and create the visual side. And then some of my higher level clients want to include the photo shoot piece. So I creative direct the photo shoot, I plan the whole thing, I find the photographer, I source the team, depending on the budget, maybe we have a crop stylist, it's kind of flexible depending. So that's super fun. And it just, to me, it's just like the creme de la creme. It just really brings that story to life and really makes your brand unique.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. Okay. So brings the story to life. I have so many questions for you because I'm thinking about how important it is to create brand, and at the same time, when people are just getting started in business, how they can hyper focus on it and it turns into a limiting aspect of building their business. Can you talk a little bit about, kind of the early stages of business building? Where does brand fit? Why is it important? What can people do?
Well, I think that's a really good point. And I think my attitude has changed up around that a little bit as I've grown in my own business and I've worked with people at different levels. And I think, depending on your stage of business, there's a time and a place for the level of branding that you invest in and you get involved in. And I think, consistency is really important. And you choose a look and feel, colors, fonts, all of that, and you grow tired of it in 6 months or a year, that's natural, right? We're all going to kind of evolve and grow. However, it's when you have that multiple brand personality disorder and every day you're like a different kind of photo and a different filter and a different font and a different template, then it's like, well, your confusion is just like, whoa, like you're just wearing your confusion on your sleeve. So I think it's more about pick something that makes sense for you. If you're super early in your business and you're doing it on your own, then, figure it out, make it work. And just know that this is, a getting started space and you're going to grow and evolve, and you're going to get so much clarity around who you are and who you serve and how you're different as you kind of fail forward, to be honest. And then at that point, when it's not necessarily a timeline, but I think it's when you're all in, right? You're committed. This is what you're doing. And you've kind of like hit your wall of success and you're just like, I'm not really being taken seriously. My credibility is being jeopardized because I don't look professional. And at that point, it's like, all right, go, people pay you for what you do. Go pay someone to do what they do and they're really good at, and, get that up leveling and that professionalism and that consistency so that your expertise is really being presented in, a positive light and people take you seriously.
I love this conversation because I think about, I love marketing and branding. And it's like, it's something that I had no idea I was going to be so into when I started my business. And I'm just like, oh, this is so fun. And it's also been something that's constantly evolving, or because I didn't know what I was doing. And I like that you highlighted, you basically, what you said that stands out to me is you're going to fail forward with your brand identity until it's kind of like you have to practice and fall down and even understand who you are and start to get defined before you can just jump out there and be like, this is what I want, at least if you're new in business.
Yeah. Well, and I think you can go out there and be, this is who I am, and you evolve. Like I know when I first started, I was kind of figuring out who I was in the marketplace, and, I was working in advertising at the time. I was designing TV and movie posters, and I lived in LA, and I had a very distinct identity that I had for my whole life. And then when we moved across the country to Asheville. And for me, I just went through this whole identity upheaval and shift of, I'm not like, how do I define myself now? I'm not like the LA girl that designed movie posters, right? Like now I live in the South, and, I have a different way of being in my business and as a mother and all of that. So for me, I knew that I'd outgrown my brand, but I needed to like do a lot of internal journeying really to come out the other side. And finally, when I started to get my footing, I had grown so much as a person, and I saw myself differently, and I really stepped up with who I was, and, promoted myself to creative director because I was like, that's what I'm doing. The men in the agency are not going to call a spade, so I'm going to just do it. So, so I think understanding that, especially if your brand is kind of tied to who you are or some element of your identity around it, as you evolve, your brand is going to evolve, and that's just a natural process. And so kind of owning where you are in the moment and knowing that it's a living, breathing thing that's going to evolve is probably going to be beneficial to just, be where you are at the moment.
Yeah, this leads me to want to ask you, just on like the most practical level, what would you say a brand is? Like what is a definition of a brand? Like what does that really mean to people? Because we can look at, like, let's say Pepsi or something, you know, like some huge brand, and we see, but when we're talking about maybe solopreneurs or smaller business owners, like what does that mean on a practical level to
Yeah,
brand yourself?
I think a brand is a brand is a brand. And to me, my definition of branding is an energetic experience. So it's
Mm.
really what you see, feel, and think with every touch point that you experience with someone's brand. So whether it's a social media post, whether it's an onboarding email, whether it's your logo, whether it's a photo of you, whether it's meeting you and experience your presence, you know, back in the day when we actually saw people in events and stuff like that. So that's the way I look at it. Is, to me, a brand is an energetic experience. And so that's
Mm.
why, for me, that is so important. And I call my business your soul brand, because it's really an external reflection of your internal world, if that makes sense.
Mm, yeah, I love that. I wasn't expecting that answer, but I'm not surprised either. An energetic experience. I mean, that's awesome. It's like the essence of what you bring to the table and how you create it in concrete form. So yeah, that's powerful. Okay. Then in that way, I mean, it seems obvious, but I'd love to hear from you. Why is it important to have a brand?
Well, that's what makes you you, right? I mean, if you think about it, I don't have a graphic in front of me, but if you think about, you go to the grocery store and you see like generic oatmeal versus, you know, Quaker Oats oatmeal. You know, the generic oatmeal is 99 cents. It's a white box with like boring Helvetica type with blue label. And you're just like, whatever. It probably tastes bad. Like, I don't know. I'm super judgy with labels, but, and then, you know, you go over and you see this like fancy oatmeal with, you know, like beautiful fonts and nice box, and, you know, it's $9.99, and you're like, well, it's the best oatmeal ever. So, you know, it really gives something an identity and a place in the marketplace so that you can call your position. And, you know, ultimately it really comes down to your value and how you, you know, sort of measure the value that you offer, because there are actually, you know, 20 ways that you can select to differentiate yourself through the value that you're offering. And, you know, when you do that, then you can really lean into it. Because some people, you know, convenience and ease maybe is part of their brand. For other people, it might be, you know, more of a luxury experience or high touch or customization or something like that. So knowing all these sort of different facets of, to me, it's like puzzle pieces. It's like, well, if you take that puzzle piece and put that over here and put that over here and put that over here, and you're talking to this person, you're adding value this way, and your values are this, and your brand tone is this. It's like, oh wow, as you put those puzzle pieces together, you're like, wow, this is who I am, and this is how I show up. And, you know, depending on whether your brand is your name or your brand is something else, you know, I know people that I've been following forever, and they started off as solopreneurs. Now they have a team and they talk about we. So, you know, it's again, it's a living, breathing thing, and who you are right now will come to represent what it is that your mission is and your brand delivers in the world. And other people may work for you, and you want them to buy into what you stand behind.
So good. It's fun to think about the evolution of brands, right? And like how you're talking about solopreneurs and then teams, and how you develop into that essence, and then other people are energetically drawn to you based on that brand. I mean, it's funny to think, because it's like probably in the boxes of oatmeal, very similar products, right? Like same thing. But it's so true. Like the sexiness of a brand can make a lot of difference.
Yeah, I mean, I just had a conversation with a woman today who, you know, she got a bid from me to do branding work and strategy work, and she got a bid from someone else, and she was like, I don't know how to make the decision. And I was like, well, I mean, my first question to you would be, are the deliverables the same, right? She's like, they are. And I was like, okay, well, price wasn't an issue, you know, what would be your thought then? And she's like, well, actually, it's like pretty much the same price. So I was like, okay, well, then ultimately it comes down to, you know, who you vibe with and like what your instinct tells you. And that is something that is not quantifiable, right? And that, you know, that's something that like, I'm just going to be who I am. And if it's a fit, great. If it's not a fit, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that like so highlights that, you know, your brand being the energetic experience, because it's so true. Like we think about it, like how many brand strategists out there are there? How many business coaches are there out there? And it's like, what makes someone attracted to me versus like the coach next door is going to be the energetic alignment. And that's what comes through in my brand, right? So it's like even having a company called NFA Coaching, no fucking around coaching. It's like some people are going to be like, I so resonate with that. And other people are going to be like, I cannot believe she's dropping the F-bomb in public. You know, like it's pretty wild.
Believer in magic, right? And like,
Yeah.
every time I do a photo shoot for a client, like the magical experience grows. And so for this one I'm planning right now in Tokyo, we were looking into some locations. And let me tell you, trying to find a nice photo shoot location in Tokyo I was like, wow, this is really challenging because it's a big city. Everything's a box. I'm like, there's no way we can get wide shots here. This is challenging. So we kind of like spread our research out. We found this gorgeous like glass house in the trees down in, southern Japan, just stunning, beautiful location.
Wow.
My client, I was like, so still looking on the Tokyo spots, having kind of a challenge, keep, pushing away. But I found this spot was kind of special and magical. Just wanted to throw it out there in case you're interested. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's so funny that you found this place because we're actually thinking about opening a retreat center down here. And I was like, that's interesting. Okay. And then one of my stylists that I use, she lives nearby, and I was looking into photographers, and so I was like, I've got a couple of photographers, let me run them by you. So I show her the photographers, and she's like, I actually know a photographer from Asheville in Tokyo, but she was just like, we'll just see who these people are. So I show her the photographer. She's like, I know this guy. I was like, what? She's like, I've been to parties with him. I'm like, of course you have.
Like, that's wild. Weird. Wow.
Even crazier. So then we had like a team meeting. We're talking about vision and all that stuff. And then I ended up speaking to the photographer after to kind of like go over some of his questions. And he's like, so do you want to hear the craziest thing now? I was like, yes, please tell me. This is so amazing. And he's like, I was at, he's kind of quarantined with a couple other families, and they were all hanging out. And they're like, what have you been up to? He's like, oh, actually like bidding on the shoot. It's going to be pretty awesome. He's like, the house is like super sick. Like, let me just show it to you. So he pulls up the picture of the house and he shows it to me. He's like, oh my gosh, that's Patrick's house. It's like someone that runs in their circle that lives just down the street from him. And I was like, of course.
Wow. That is amazing. I love when synchronicities like that happen. It's so validating.
Like, what is your thought on that? I'm like, well, back at like when I was younger, I used to think it was a coincidence. I thought outside of me and just sort of happenstance. And I was like, now I'm trained in NLP. I've been around the block. I've seen rock bottom. I was like, I'm a lot smarter these days. And I know that I created it. To me, it's the mirror effect of alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this. Okay. With that, I want to ask you, how do you help people align their brand? So for listeners, if you had to give some really practical tips, like what does brand alignment look like so that you can be in that magnetic flow of attracting the right people in all these beautiful ways? If people are just kind of like, let's say getting started or they're in that process of brand evolution, what are some practical tips in terms of what's most important to include in a brand?
Absolutely. Well, I think how to align and the most important things are kind of two conversations.
Okay.
So I can give you a checklist, right?
That's awesome. Love checklists.
I think I'll do a checklist and then I can kind of illustrate how to kind of reverse engineer stories.
Okay.
And so, I think ultimately you want a logo. However, there's different ways that you can approach a logo, right? If you're newer, you're doing it yourself, you have like zero design skills whatsoever, find a pretty font that you like, type your name out, and like call it a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that's like where you're at, just do that and it's fine. However, as you evolve in your brands, to me, the reason I do the deep dive is to kind of like unearth the meaning behind the brand. And then you figure out, well, how do you represent the meaning through the visual cues and the language? And at that point, then you want to figure out, what are the symbols that represent this essence that I'm doing, right? And like I'm working on some, mark logos for some clients right now, and I'm like, it's a mess. Like I had to clean my office. I had like drawings and like my desktop. I was like, oh my God, I can't even see. I have so many like graphics that I pinned everywhere. So, I think you definitely want to have a logo of some sort. You want to have fonts. You want to pick some nice fonts, and like, please please never use Comic Sans. Please never. I like hosted something one time and they're like, why did you say not to use Comic Sans? And I was like, remain calm. I was like, because it's ugly. Don't ever use it, please. Like people like a child. So, you just like, if you want to err on the side of ease, like just pick a really clean, simple font. Montserrat is a great, easy one. I would recommend picking Google fonts because you can find them. We use so many online platforms like, if you're using MailChimp or Flowdesk or ConvertKit, ClickFunnels, all the things. And so finding a font or two that, can be sort of stretched across these different platforms. Maybe you pick one that's, a bolder headline font, and then one that's, a really easy to read body copy font that, is a sans serif, which means the letters are just straight lines. And a serif font means it has those little feet on the ends of the letters. So serif font,
Never knew that.
serif font is going to give you a little bit more of like a classic, like, couture, not highbrow, but just like a little bit more of sophistication look to you. And then something that is a sans serif font is going to be a little bit more clean and modern. So, I think worst case scenario, again, if you're doing it yourself, just pick a couple fonts that are easy to read, look good, really, really tiny, really, really big, and just call it a day. And then, pick your colors. And from a color standpoint, I have like a color matrix process that I go through. It was like working on color palettes for clients for like 2 hours, like in the wee hours this morning. But, as a general rule, you want to have like a hero color. There's kind of your main color that you're using. That maybe is like your color blocking or your headlines. If you're doing photo shoots, like maybe that's, like I used to have like hot pink, and now it's like more of a raspberry and electric blue. So I have a lot more blue now in my clothes. So I wear a lot more blue. So, you can weave that into your brand through, colors that you wear, colors that you have in your website or on your opt-in pages and your Instagram, things along those lines. And then you want to have like a sort of like a secondary color and then an accent color. So, if you're like bare bones, like pick 3 colors, black or white or gray, call it a day. I've got like a 9 palette going with the client because we're going to do this like mega breakout of all these things and have the different color palettes speak to different parts of her programs and stuff like that. But again, like tread with caution. If you don't know what you're doing, like just keep it simple. And I'm trying to think what else. So I would say, like a primary, a secondary, an accent, and then potentially a CTA color. I go back and forth on that of picking a color that is your call to action color that you actually don't use anywhere else in your brand, so that when people see it, they know click on or push this button. Sometimes I stick hard and fast with that with the client. Sometimes I don't. It just kind of depends on where things net out. And, people have different stances on that. So I would say that. And then, you can, if that's it, and this is like doing anything visual makes you want to eat glass, like you're good. Tap out, like go with it, be consistent, wake up every day, use the same things. If you have to change your mind, tell it no. Like these are the rules.
Yeah.
And, grow your business, focus on getting clients, showing up, share your message, be authentic, save some money with each, person. Maybe it's 5%, 10%, whatever you're, save a little bit every time so that when you're ready to invest in like an up level of branding or have a brand shoot, you have some money saved to do that. And you don't have this like scarcity of like, oh my God, I can never do it. Right. Because, the more you invest in yourself, the more people are going to invest in you. It's a mirror effect, right? So I would say that's kind of the bare bones for it. And then, if you want to get a little fancier, you can pick some textures, some patterns. You can draw it yourself if you're into that. You can buy some, get some stock photos. Again, you can buy stock photos through Shutterstock or things like that. You can find some free places. Find a handful of photos that maybe kind of become your backgrounds for your website or on your Instagram or something along those lines. And again, like you can stop there. And then if you want to like go even further, then you can have a photo shoot, and a photo shoot is scalable to any budget, right? You can just hire someone to take some headshots for you. So you have some nice pictures for your social media and, maybe a couple pictures of you for your website. And it's like done. I saw this one website that looked gorgeous, and the woman just went into a studio, took a bunch of photos of herself and just laid it out very creatively. So you can do that. Oftentimes I work with clients and we rent these gorgeous locations, and like I hired a prop stylist for my shoot, and I tell stories through the props and like bring the meaning out that way. So if you're more advanced in your business, like pony up, like do it, invest, because it's totally worth it. And it, people can see, they see that, and they recognize that you've put in that investment and you clearly believe in yourself if you've, gone to this extent. So I would say, that's kind of kind of like the bare bones to adding in some extra things. And I think once you reach a point where, you're focusing on client fulfillment, whether you're doing programs or done for you or whatever your offer may be, when you're maxed out and you're just, and if you don't enjoy it, I would say hire an expert to do it for you, right? Like, you want people to hire you to do what you're good at. So stop doing things that make you crazy and hire someone to do it for you. And, everyone will be happier for it. So I think, that's kind of the to-do list. And then in terms of the other question was, how do you get aligned? Was that what it was?
Yeah. Thinking about, brand, like what are the most important elements? And then how do you get aligned in your brand so that you're sending the right energetic message to your people?
Right. So I think the easiest way to explain it is it's sort of a balance between feelings, imagery, and words. So I'll give you an example, which I think will help very well. So, for example, one of my clients right now, she sent me a Pinterest board, and it was really soft. It was like very pastel, like lace, just like, petally flowers. And I was like, interesting, like intuition, like that doesn't feel on point to me, but I can pull stuff from it. And then as we were doing the strategy piece, she started to realize, like, wow, I'm actually really bold. I'm making these radical transformations for people. This is a much more impactful process that I'm taking people on. And I was like, exactly, because now we understand the core of who you are and how you want to show up in the world. And you need to have that weight and that edge and that, depth in your, to me, it was like the first thing was color palette, right? So it's like, you need to have some lights and darks to kind of mirror the juxtaposition of the yin and the yang that you're taking people on, finding their light, finding their shadow. And then also you need to have that depth in your colors, either in a saturation, either it's like going, I could get nerd out on colors all day, but like either you're going out with the vibrance of it, or there's a juxtaposition and a contrast, right? So it just, kind of depends. And so that understanding the essence of the boldness and the desire to kind of shock and create impact really impacted how I led with the colors. And then, I was working on some other client stuff. And, we did the whole strategy thing, really helped them understand that, and a lot of it for me is intuitive. So I just kind of know, like people channel dead people, I channel colors and shapes. So that's like what I do.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. But it is an art, right?
It is an art. And it's
it's an incredible art. I'm thinking, as you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking, like I have a swipe file for, copy that hooks me because I'm like, oh, that's good copy. And it's the same thing with brands. Like when you see brands that are aligned, you're like, you get it. You experience the power, or whatever the feeling they want you to have is there. And it takes creativity and alignment and, playing with that over time. What would you say are the biggest mistakes that you notice people making when they're doing their own thing and trying to align their brand?
Well, I would say there's a few. One would be ugly fonts, which like I get like start frothing in the mouth when I see ugly fonts. And you see, you go by menus, if there's an ugly menu, I'm like, I can't eat there.
Yeah, I get it.
But again, if you're not an expert in this area, take it easy on yourself. But I think, fonts have a personality, and you can really elevate your brand through the choice. I'll spend hours looking at fonts, like hours. I probably spent 5 hours looking at fonts just in the last 2 weeks for a few different projects. Because just the subtle nuance of the way an R turns for somebody's name versus another one, the letter, and it's like, I'm super nerdy about that. I own that, and not everyone's going to see that stuff. So I think, picking good fonts, especially fonts that are legible, and fonts that, convey a level of professionalism. Sometimes people will choose like kitty fonts or display fonts. It just, they're fun if you're making like a Halloween invitation, right? But if you want to, present yourself. And then I think colors, working well together. I've definitely seen colors that vibrate online where, maybe someone has like a red background with purple type over it. And I'm like, I can't read that. So just making sure that there's a proper level of contrast. And one exercise that I've brought into picking my colors is now I actually I'll go in and I'll make color palettes, and then I actually run them through a legibility test. And I kind of look at the ratio of how I want to lay it out. Is this going to be a good lead color? And then I lay the colors on top of each other. And it's like, well, because it's like, once you get to the website, is this going to be a background color? Am I going to put a headline over it? What is that going to look like?
Yeah.
So, I think, again, err on the side of simple if you're doing it for yourself, and, try not to, if you look at it and it vibrates, pick new colors, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like bright bluey teal. That's usually a bad color unless it's like a super accent color.
I think it's really interesting, because what you're saying that's standing out to me is this idea of you want your personality to shine through and your brand to shine through, your energetic essence, that kind of thing, while also knowing who you want to align with and attract to you. Because I think sometimes there's that misrepresentation where someone picks oh, this looks so playful and fun, but is your business playful and fun? If it is, probably a good match. If it's not, you might want to rethink it. If you're trying to attract multi-million-dollar clients, you're going to need a different brand than if you want to work with kindergartners. You really got to be thinking about who your client avatar is when you're branding yourself and what you want to be attracting your way. That's what I hear you saying, all these. It's pick the font that's aligned, pick the colors that are aligned, not only with you, but with the people that you want to be working with, and really think about it from the user's perspective of oh, how are they going to perceive this? That's something I really struggled with in the beginning. It was you just learn so much as you're building a business and a brand.
That was a fascinating curve for me to realize
yeah,
it's right, left, and center, and I gotta be one with it.
Yeah.
But I think, again, to kind of reverse engineer it, if you figure out, when I was working on the stuff the other day, I kind of took them in a few different directions. They were related, so it wasn't personality, dysfunction, but it was just knowing that they had kind of a bold edginess to them. I was like, well, a way to convey that visually would be with some high contrast black and white images and maybe some bold brushstrokes, and so if you think about how you want to describe your brand, right? What is your brand personality? What are your brand values? If it's, soft and caring and loving, okay, maybe then pastels is great, right? But if it's bold and edgy and pushing the envelope, you're probably going to want to have color contrast. You probably want to have a bright, maybe one color pop, maybe multiple color pops. If you're fun and zany and playful, maybe you have a bunch of bright colors. So when you can understand, if you're not a visual person, if you can at least lock into some words that describe your brand personality, what you want things to feel like, look like.
Yeah.
Visuals, you can say, would I describe these visuals this way? And if so, awesome. And if not, it's okay, well, detach and pick something new.
Yeah, I think that's the key that you're talking about right there. It's detached, because we get this idea in our head and then we move forward with it without stopping to think, does this align, and is it going to attract what I want to have attracted my way? Which is super important. Okay. I love this. Do you have any recommendations for brand books for listeners? What would be some good books people could read in terms of branding themselves?
Yeah, well, I have a book called Brand Thinking, and it's a bunch of short stories. So that's really interesting. If you want to, think for you can digest it in chunks. One book that I'm reading right now is called The Hero and the Outlaw. It's all about brand archetypes, because it's something that I've used before, but I started to teach it and people were asking me questions, and I was like, I need to learn more about this. So I'm I have an endless note stock as I read it. And I think that that's a really interesting way. And it's another layer of depth, because archetypes are really, sort of these essence pockets that embody ways of being, ways of thinking, ways of acting, ways of marketing, ways of messaging, ways of evoking emotion. And when you can figure out what your archetype is and really own that, it just adds another layer of depth and meaning. And so I think that that's really a fascinating book, that it's big. So
Oh, it sounds incredible. I love this idea, brand archetypes. Okay. Share, I'm being sensitive about time. Share with listeners. I know you've been a powerhouse businesswoman for a while. How many years did you say? Did you say 20?
Oh, well, I mean, I've been working for 20 some years in all kinds of ways.
Okay. Okay.
Or gosh, since 2017, was that 3 or almost?
Okay. Okay. So on your own, being a badass in the world. So share with listeners the top 3 max potential habits that got you where you are today.
Yeah. Well, I would say the number one, calendaring and scheduling. And that was a learned skill, right? I mean, I remember I used to like drive around and I would have Post-it notes all over my car. Like my girlfriend would be like, what is this craziness? I would have like Post-it notes on my computer. I'd have my email, and I used to get up in the morning and I would check my email and be like, okay, I got to do this today. I got to do that today. I would check like, I don't write phone with text at the time. And I would just kind of like filter through my life and be like, what do I have to do today? And I went around that way for a really long time, and it did not work very well, but I didn't know any better. And then as, when I was, my first foray really into having an online business was I was a Beachbody coach. And I was working full time. I had a brand new baby, and I was like, oh my God, like every millisecond needs to be maximized. And so I started studying productivity, and I'm naturally an organized person, but I just, I kind of knew what I knew, and it got me where I was. So understanding the concept of like a batching, time blocking, I don't use the Pomodoro technique like obsessively, but sometimes if I kind of get off track, it's almost like doing a cleanse. It's like time myself for a day or two to get myself back in order. So I think that's really helpful. And then a habit that I picked up from Darren Hardy, which has been life-changing. I don't know if he has like a special name for it, but he did like a free thing that I watched. And he talked about how he planned his week coming up the Friday before. And I was like, whoa, that's genius. So I would say on good weeks, I can do it the Friday before. Not so much right now. So mostly I'll do it Saturdays. And then I'm in a program with Tracy Litt, and she talks about doing it on Sundays. And I'm testing that out. And I was like, no, I want to do nothing on Sundays. Like I need to like unwind at some point. So I get up and I review I kind of transfer my whole calendar. I was doing on Google Docs now on time paper to see if that works better, just to visualize my time. And then sometimes I'm like, ooh, I didn't know that was happening, or I booked this too close. I got to move this around. So it gives me enough advance notice that if I need to change something, I feel like it gives, it's okay. It's not like emailing them the morning of or like the day before. And to me, it just feels like disorganized and rude. So it's like, I like to give someone a little bit of advance notice if I need to change things. And and then I go through and I segment out, what do I need to do on Mondays? What do I need to do on Tuesdays? And whatever happens when I'm doing this changes at least 45 times throughout the week. But at least I go into my week kind of having a general idea of what do I need to do every day? And then things just ride the roller coaster of things that happen throughout the week. So I would say that's probably like my biggest secret sauce success is, I'm able to get a lot done because I'm very smart with how I segment out my time.
Nice.
I would say the next one would be getting up early. A time in my life that before I was a mom, and I was like, I told my husband, I'm like, I will never get up before 7 a.m. And he still teases me about once I started doing Beachbody, I got up, at 6 and then 5:30 and then 5. And then once COVID hit and I was like, wow, I've got so many things to do. And then like, as soon as my daughter's up, I'm like doing stuff and just like, it's like a 3-ring circus. I've been getting up at 4 a.m. for, I don't know, since April. And,
wow.
It's like I get an entire day's work done by 8 o'clock. It's fantastic. I do look forward to going back and getting more sleep once the world normalizes. But I would say getting up early is huge. And, I had to make the choice of, do I want to stay up late and do stuff before I go to bed and then wake up groggy? Or do I like call it at the end of the day and just like shelve it and do it tomorrow? So I had to kind of fail forward on that and realize like, I'm not being effective. Let's make a choice. And I think the next thing would be investing in myself, like really, and this is, a continual evolution, is to really understand what abundance means to me and how to own it and call it in and manage, scarcity, panics and thinking, which I think is, some days is like a big challenge and some days is like, whatever, no big deal. So, continuing to invest in myself and, see where my edge is and then push it. And I've gone to points in my life where I like hit the edge and it's like, what is it? Icarus's wings, where it burns and he falls flat on his ass and like dies. I definitely had moments where I hit my edge so hard, so fast that I come crashing down. Not super proud, but again, fail forward. And then, so I've kind of learned, or like, and one of my coaches is like, slow down, breathe, like less is more. So it's, I'm evolving as a person. I'm showing growth. It's good. So I think investing in yourself, pushing yourself just where it's, you don't want to go so far that you like freak out and resist, but, pushing past your comfort zone so that you grow.
Love it. Those are awesome. Okay. I'm seeing time. Jordan and I had a talk before about the time cutoff, so I'm making sure that we're on it. So share with listeners where they can find you. And I want to highlight here that when I found Jordan and saw her Instagram, I was like, damn, that's a good Instagram. So I already know, definitely check her out on Instagram, which is under Ignite Your Soul brand, correct?
Yeah, Ignite Your Soul.
Okay, good. I haven't checked back there in a little bit, but okay. So Instagram, Ignite Your Soul brand. Go check her out. And then what are other places that they can find you?
Yeah, so, the best place to find me would be the new website, which is Ignite Your Soul brand. Right now, it's just a holder while I'm kind of working behind the scenes. But if you want to get in touch or interested in working together, you can, click on the contact button. And once it's live, there'll be a big, contact me button so you can ask questions or reach out for podcasts or working together or whatever it may be. And then I've got a really awesome freebie that I'm working up for everybody that is, some case studies of, how you can really blow up your brand with just some simple shifts. So
that's awesome. Case studies to blow up your brand. And then I know you said by the time this is released, you'll also have like a quiz. I think you said soul brand quiz.
Yeah, well, I have a soul brand quiz right now, but I've actually this archetype book because I'm gonna revamp it a little bit. So
nice.
Relaunched again soon.
Okay. Awesome. So all of those links for everyone will be in the show notes. And they sound great. I love quizzes. I'm making one right now too. They're so fun. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for your tips. I think it's such an important conversation, and it's one that people think about, and there's so many hats we wear as entrepreneurs and so many things we do as we start a business. But to me, I love the idea, people have asked me a lot, like, how did you get where you are so quickly? And it's like, a lot of it is brand identity. It's me working on that marketing piece of like, who am I? What do I bring to the table? And who do I want to work with? And it has definitely evolved since I started, but it's just, I think it's such a powerful, important conversation. And you're such a master at it. It's been fun to have you on. Thank you for the tips.
Thank you. Yeah, I know if I ever meet someone at a party, I'm like, tell me about your business. Okay, we're going to create an entire strategy for you.
Yeah, right. That's when you're genius. So you are a genius at branding. I love it. All right. So thank you so much. Okay. Everyone, thank you again for being here for another week of the Max Potential Habits podcast. I hope this week you align your brand, you get energetically clear about who you want to work with, and really think about, what am I presenting with my brand? Is it aligned? Is it attracting the right people? Does it need a revamp? It's okay to revamp. I did it. I completely rebranded at the beginning of my business when I switched from ABI to NFA, and, it's don't be scared to start fresh, and don't be scared to just get started in the direction of creating that essence of your brand. So that's why I wanted to bring these tips to you today, because I know it's on everyone's mind in the background, always going like, how do I create a message and meaning behind what I bring to the table and how I can show it to people in a concrete way. So that's why we're here. Have a great week. I hope that you all thrive and feel alive until I see you again. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Max Potential Habits podcast. If you're liking what you've heard, it would be so incredibly awesome if you would subscribe to the channel and leave a 5-star rating and a written review. This helps me help more people while we grow our NFA community so we can rock it out together. For Max Potential Habits resources, go to nfacoaching.com where you can access all of my resources. There's free ebooks, PDF checklists, a journal template, a business mindset meditation kit, and so much more. Plus, links to NFA coaching on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And if you're super serious about up-leveling, there's also a link to schedule a free consult to work with me in group or one-on-one coaching. Until next time, I hope you have a Max Potential Habits Day where you get inspired to do whatever it takes to transform into the most empowered version of yourself so you can lead a rich, thriving, kick-ass life and business.